Okay, learning to use a 6-axis robotic arm starts with finding the mechanical unit of the arm itself, and then finding the robot controller, the brain of the operation, and turning it on. Please look over here to notice that when you do, you're powering up in teach mode. And you know that you're in teach mode because this lock switch is pointing at it. Teach mode limits the speed to always be less than 250 millimeters per second, and it prevents any movement at all unless you are carefully hanging on to the teach pendant with your hands. Automatic mode would require important safety barriers, and so we're not going to use auto mode because we're going to focus on fundamental concepts and setting up new and cool and exciting processes. We're not setting up production runs that need to run for months on end uninterrupted. So we're not going to be pushing this cycle start button because that's how you kick off an auto mode process. And we're unlikely to be pushing this e-stop anytime soon because we're going to be closer to a more convenient e-stop button over on the teach pendant. So go ahead and pull the teach pendant off the hook and push the e-stop button there. Push this anytime you want everything to stop in a hurry. And like all e-stop buttons, turn it in the direction of the arrows to release the emergency stop mode. While you're waiting for the controller to finish booting up, say hello to this toggle switch over here. When it's on, this allows the teach pendant to communicate with the main controller, and it's got to be on in teach mode. When the system does boot up, you're going to be looking at a lot of information. Don't worry, all we care about at this point is this red box that says fault. A fault is something that's going to prevent any mechanical movement in the arm. The first thing we want to learn how to do is how to clear that initial fault, and how to acknowledge that it's actually a good thing. We don't want immediate movement in the arm. We only want movement when we allow the movement. Okay, let's clear it. Flip the teach pendant over and say hello to this gigantic yellow switch and its companion over there. They both do the same thing. One is for right-handed people, one is for left-handed people. And it's a switch with 2 stages, so push down on it until you hear a click and know that you've arrived at the first stage, and that if you push harder, you'll arrive at the second stage with a bigger click. So push this button a bunch of times and start to imagine these 3 layers. Completely unpressed is going to generate a fault. The first click, the middle layer, is going to be your green zone, the good zone that allows mechanical movement, and then squeezing too hard is also going to generate a fault. So let's try it out. Slide your hand around the side of the teach pendant, squeeze until you find the first click, the green zone, and then with your thumb press this reset button. That is going to clear the fault. This whole mechanism is called the dead man switch. Its purpose is to prevent any mechanical movement if you're not there at all, and to also prevent mechanical movement if you're startled and squeezing too hard. Good, now practice generating some faults and clearing them. Press the e-stop button, the emergency stop button, and then twist it to release the physical part, but notice how we're still in a faulted state, teach pendant e-stop. So pull the dead man switch and press the reset button to clear it. Now the on-off switch. Switch to off, and notice how that triggers a fault that doesn't go away even when you come back to on, because again, you've got to clear every fault that gets triggered with the same procedure by pulling the dead man switch halfway and pressing the reset button. Okay, we're getting close to first movement. Let's talk about coordinates. Currently, I'm in S/world, singularity avoidance world. You can look up that more now if you want, but really, you just need to push this coord, short for coordinates button, until you arrive at joint coordinate mode. This is going to let us move the robot 1 joint at a time. What's a joint? Well, the robot has 6 of them, and let's find them via a walk around. A walk around is where you literally walk around the robot looking for what it is close to. What are you at risk of smashing into the most? The robot arm is extremely strong. It has the potential to smash through glass, dent metal, and hurt you. So we're going to proceed slowly, introducing each movement one at a time. And slowly just means here, 10% of max speed. It should be reset to 10% each time you start up the robot, but just in case not, press this down arrow to get it back to 10. Okay, let's make it move. Clear the fault with the dead man switch and the reset button, and then use your thumb to push and hold this shift key. Occupying the entirety of that hand, you can use your other thumb to press these J1, J2, J3, J4, J5, and J6 keys. And as you push them, make sure you're watching the mechanical unit of the arm itself. Whenever you make it move, you want to be watching the thing that moves. Okay, here's J1, positive and negative. Here's J2. Notice how two physical joints actually move for J2. Here's J3. Only J3 moves when you push that button. Here's J4. This joint loves to get these pneumatic hoses tangled up, so keep an eye on them. Here's J5. And finally, here's J6. That is why this is called a 6-axis robotic arm. It's the minimum amount of joints really needed to reach almost all of the possible points within the sphere that are physically reachable by this arm. All right, play with this for a while. Get to know the movements of the robot. Practice using the teach pendant. Try to get a bit of an intuitive grasp about which joint is going to move when you push each of the J1 through 6 buttons. Next up, we're going to get a Sharpie loaded into the tool, opening and closing the grippers, and we're going to start to draw.